The insult came like shattered glass across the dinner table. "Get a job and stop living off us." Lena said, her voice sharp enough that even the neighbors could have heard through the open window. Forks froze mid-air, and for a long second, silence wrapped the room. Then something unexpected happened. Evelyn laughed. It was not the laugh of defeat, nor a nervous attempt to soften the blow. It was calm, steady, and strangely liberating. For years, Lena had whispered her disdain, but in that one moment, she finally showed her true face. What no one at the table knew, not even Evelyn's son, Daniel, was that the woman in the faded cardigan and secondhand shoes was worth more than $5 million. Behind her modest apartment with its chipped paint and mismatched furniture lived the truth of a self-made woman. After her husband abandoned the family decades earlier, Evelyn built a logistics company from scratch. She hired drivers, negotiated contracts, and worked through endless nights until the business grew strong enough to sell. By the time she signed the papers, she had secured a fortune. But wealth had its price. People's smiles changed when they discovered money. They looked at her as a bank account, not as a person. After years of disappointment, Evelyn made a choice. She would live simply hiding her success and see who truly loved her for herself. So she moved into a small, shabby apartment, wore inexpensive clothes, and cooked simple meals. Even her son believed she had little left. Evelyn told herself it was necessary to see Daniel as he really was, and to judge the woman he had married. Lena's sharp comments, her stage hospitality, and her subtle humiliations became tests Evelyn silently endured. That evening, when Lena's words cut through the air, Evelyn leaned back in her chair and replied with a quiet smile. "Sweetheart, you may want to think carefully about the ground you're standing on." Daniel's fork clattered against his plate. He glanced between his mother and his wife, torn and uncertain. What he did not realize was that the polished house, the very table they sat around, had once been purchased with Evelyn's money. The irony was almost unbearable. For years, she had hidden in plain sight, waiting for the moment when truth would no longer stay buried. The following week came too quickly, and with it, another invitation from Lena. She loved her little performances, these staged dinners, where she could play the role of a gracious hostess while quietly cutting Evelyn down piece by piece. Evelyn had endured worse in her life, so she told herself she could survive another evening of polite cruelty. Still deep inside, she sensed this night would be different. The dining room gleamed with polished silverware and spotless glasses. Lena, in a fitted red dress, moved about the table with dramatic flair, every gesture a performance. Daniel sat stiffly across from his mother, eyes flicking nervously between the two women. He looked like a man waiting for thunder he knew was coming. For the first hour, the conversation remained harmless. Weather work deadlines. Lena's recent yoga retreat, nothing more than small talk. But Evelyn could feel Lena circling, waiting for the right moment to strike. And then it came. "Evelyn," Lena began sweetly, her voice carrying that familiar razor edge. "Have you thought about finding something useful to do, a job?" "Perhaps." "My cousin's grandmother works as a cashier at the grocery store. It keeps her busy, gives her a little spending money." Evelyn placed her fork down slowly, as if it weighed a ton. A cashier. After decades of running a company, signing contracts, and building an empire, her daughter-in-law saw her as fit for scanning barcodes. Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but said nothing. His silence cut deeper than Lena's insult. Emboldened by his lack of defense, Lena pressed harder. "You're only 61. Many people your age still work. It's not healthy to just sit in that tiny apartment. And well, Daniel and I want to start a family soon. We can't keep carrying the weight of someone who refuses to contribute." The words landed like blows. Evelyn folded her hands in her lap, forcing her voice to remain calm. "Is that truly what you think of me, that I'm a burden?" she asked softly. Lena's eyes gleamed with triumph. "Let's be honest, Evelyn. You rely on us for everything. It's not sustainable." Evelyn studied her carefully. The arrogance, the ignorance, the blindness. And then something shifted within her. She leaned back in her chair, her tone steady but dangerous. "You have no idea what's coming for you." The room fell silent. For the first time, Lena looked uncertain. Daniel's head snapped up, confusion flickering in his eyes. Evelyn didn't press further. She didn't need to. The seed of doubt had been planted, and soon it would grow. That night, as Evelyn walked the streets of Detroit back to her modest apartment, she reflected on the act she had been performing for years. The chipped furniture, the sagging sofa, the faded curtains, it was all a costume. She had created this disguise to see the truth in people's hearts. But now the disguise was becoming harder to bear. She asked herself a question that echoed with every step. How much longer could she live this lie? The pretense had served its purpose, but Lena's cruelty had made something clear. It was time to prepare for the moment when truth would no longer stay hidden. 3 days passed after that tense dinner before Daniel finally called his mother. His voice was uncertain, weighed down by hesitation. "Mom," he said quietly, "can I come over? We need to talk." When Daniel arrived at Evelyn's small apartment, he looked around with obvious discomfort. The peeling paint, the sagging sofa, the flickering lamp, all of it seemed to confirm what he believed about her, that she was struggling. Barely getting by, he sighed heavily. "Mom, this place is so small, so depressing. How have you lived like this for so long?" Evelyn poured him a cup of coffee from the expensive beans she kept hidden for rare occasions. He took a sip, startled by the richness of the taste. Then she sat down across from him, folded her hands on the chipped table, and met his eyes. "You asked what I meant the other night," she said, softly. "It's time I show you." From the shelf, she pulled down a thick folder. Its edges were worn from years of handling. She slid it across the table. Daniel opened it reluctantly, his brow furrowing as he flipped through page after page. Bank statements, investment portfolios, property deeds. His eyes widened as the numbers registered. "Mom, what is this?" "This," Evelyn answered firmly, "is who I really am. After your father left, I built a company from nothing. I sold it before retiring, and I've been living off investments ever since. I am worth over $5 million. Daniel's hands trembled as he turned another page. "But the apartment, the clothes, no car. You let us think." "I let you think what you wanted," she interrupted gently. "Because I needed to see the truth. I needed to know who would love me for myself, not for what I could give." He leaned back, pale and shaken. "So all this time you were testing us?" "I was protecting myself," Evelyn corrected. "From people like Lena, people who see kindness as weakness and modesty as poverty." Daniel rubbed his face with both hands. Shame was settling in. She's treated you badly, hasn't she?" Evelyn's voice remained calm but cut deep. "She has treated me like dirt, Daniel. And you stood by and let her." The words landed heavier than a slap. For the first time, Daniel's expression carried regret. 2 nights later, Lena called Evelyn directly. Her tone was commanding, not requesting. "We're having a family meeting. Tonight, 7 p.m. Be there." Evelyn almost laughed at her arrogance, but she went fully prepared. That evening, she arrived not in her thrift store disguise, but in a fitted black dress, a pearl necklace Harold had once given her, and heels that clicked sharply against the polished floors. Daniel opened the door, his eyes widening. "Mom, you look like yourself again." In the living room, Lena sat on the sofa like a queen awaiting trial. Several relatives were gathered. Her sister, her cousin, even one of Daniel's old friends, clearly invited to watch Evelyn's humiliation. "Good," Lena said smugly. "Now we can put everything in the open." "You've been lying to us, Evelyn. Pretending to be poor, manipulating Daniel, making us worry. That's not normal. You need help." Her voice dripped with false concern, but her eyes gleamed with triumph. She thought she had cornered her mother-in-law. Evelyn calmly set her purse on the coffee table and unzipped it. "You want everything in the open, Lena Fine? Let's put it all on the table." From inside, she drew out a manila envelope. Slowly, she laid out printed emails, consultation notes from an elder law attorney, and photographs. Daniel leaned forward, frowning. "What is this?" "Proof," Evelyn said evenly, "that your wife has been planning to take guardianship over me. She asked an attorney how quickly she could gain control of my finances if I were declared incompetent." The room went still. Lena's face drained of color. "That's a lie," she screamed. "She's twisting everything." "Is it also a lie," Evelyn pressed, "that you have over $50,000 in hidden credit card debt? That you pawned jewelry and replaced it with fakes, so Daniel wouldn't notice I have those records too?" Gasps rippled through the room. Lena's sister looked down ashamed. Daniel froze, staring at his wife as though seeing her for the first time. Finally, Evelyn pulled out the last document and held it high. And here is the deed to this house. My name is on it, not yours, not Daniel's. Mine. You have been living under my roof as my guest, and tonight your time here is over. Lena's eyes widened in horror. She had built her image on sand, and now the tide had come in. The argument that followed was loud and furious. Lena stormed upstairs, slamming doors, stuffing clothes into a suitcase. Her sister trailed behind, whispering desperately. Within half an hour, Lena descended the stairs, dragging her luggage. She threw Evelyn a glare so sharp it could have cut glass. "This isn't over," she hissed before slamming the door. But Evelyn knew it was the beginning of the end. In the days that followed, Lena struck back. She spread her version of the story through whispers, phone calls, and social media. On Facebook and Instagram, she painted herself as the victim of a cruel, manipulative mother-in-law. Blurry photos of Evelyn's shabby apartment appeared with captions like, "Elder abuse is real," and "Some women are so twisted they destroy their own families." Sympathy poured in for Lena. Strangers condemned Evelyn as heartless. Friends shared posts adding fuel to the fire. Even Daniel showed his mother one of Lena's posts, his face pale. "She's painting you as a monster," he whispered. "That's because she's cornered," Evelyn replied calmly. "And a cornered person lashes out. When they lash out, they make mistakes." She underestimated, however, just how far Lena would go. One gray Tuesday afternoon, Evelyn's phone rang. The caller introduced herself as Detective Karen Lopez from the Detroit Police Department. "Mrs. Blake," the detective said firmly, "we've received a complaint regarding allegations of elder abuse and financial exploitation. I need you to come down to the station to answer some questions." For the first time in years, Evelyn felt a chill run through her body. Lena had crossed the final line. She hung up the call and dialed her attorney immediately. When Jonathan Reeves, her trusted lawyer, answered, she said only one sentence. "Jonathan, my daughter-in-law has accused me of elder abuse. Meet me at the station in an hour." His reply was steady and sure. "Bring everything we've prepared. It's time." Evelyn closed her eyes, breathed deeply, and felt the weight of years begin to lift. Lena thought she had delivered the final blow. But in truth, she had just made her most dangerous mistake yet. The morning of the police summons, Evelyn dressed with deliberate care. Gone was the shabby cardigan, the worn shoes, the disguise of poverty she had lived in for years. Instead, she wore a tailored navy dress, pearl earrings, and her hair neatly pulled back. She looked every bit the confident, self-assured woman she truly was. Beside her walked Jonathan Reeves, her attorney of 2 decades, briefcase in hand. Together, they entered the Detroit Police Department. Detective Karen Lopez greeted them in a modest interview room. Her eyes flickered with surprise when she saw Evelyn, healthy, calm, far from the vulnerable old woman Lena had described. "Mrs. Blake," the detective began, "your daughter-in-law, Lena, has filed a report. She claims you are being financially abused by your son, that you live in poverty because your money is controlled, and that when she tried to intervene, you retaliated against her." She slid a folder across the table. Inside were photographs of Evelyn's small apartment, taken secretly from outside her window, and bank statements from an account that rarely held more than a few $100s. Jonathan leaned forward. "Detective, may we present our own evidence?" Evelyn opened her folder. She laid out documents, investment portfolios, trust accounts, property, deeds. Every paper was current, legal, and undeniable. The detective's eyes widened as she scanned the numbers. "This shows assets of more than $5 million. "Correct," Jonathan said firmly. "My client chooses to live modestly. She is in full control of her finances. There is no abuse here. In fact, the only attempted exploitation has been by the complainant." Evelyn added softly, "Lena wasn't worried about my well-being. She consulted an elder law attorney asking how quickly she could gain guardianship and take control of my estate. She's buried in credit card debt and has pawned jewelry to hide her spending. This complaint is nothing more than a desperate attempt to cover her tracks." Detective Lopez leaned back, tapping her pen. "If what you've shown me checks out, then Lena has filed a false report. That's a felony. She could face arrest." Aw. Evelyn met her gaze steadily. "Detective, I want her prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And I want a restraining order keeping her away from me and my son." The detective nodded. You'll have both. 2 hours later, Evelyn's phone buzzed with a message from Daniel. They arrested her. Mom, what happens now? Evelyn stood at the window of her penthouse apartment, the Detroit skyline glittering beneath the evening light. For years, she had hidden this life, but no longer. She texted back, "Now, Daniel, we rebuild." That evening, Daniel came to see her. When he stepped inside the penthouse, he froze. His mouth opened, then closed, as though words had abandoned him. "Mom, this is where you've been all along." "Yes," Evelyn said softly. "This is who I really am. I hid it because I needed to see the truth, and now you know it." Daniel walked slowly through the room, his hand brushing along the polished furniture, his eyes lingering on the paintings she had once chosen with Harold. Finally, he turned back, shame written across his face. "I let her humiliate you. I let her call you names, treat you like nothing, and I stood by." Evelyn touched his arm gently. "You were blinded by love, Daniel. It happens. What matters now is what you do with the truth." Months passed. The legal process moved forward with relentless clarity. In court, Lena stood pale and furious as the judge read the sentence: 6 months in county jail for filing a false police report, 3 years of probation restitution of Evelyn's legal costs, and a restraining order forbidding her from contacting either Evelyn or Daniel. Her world collapsed piece by piece. Friends distanced themselves, relatives turned cold. Her reputation dissolved. She had built her image on lies, and the lies had crumbled into dust. Daniel, meanwhile, found freedom. For the first time in years, he smiled without shadows. He spent evenings with his mother again, sharing meals, laughing, remembering their bond. Slowly, they rebuilt the relationship that Lena had tried to poison. One evening, Daniel confided, "I met someone. Her name is Leah. She's a school counselor. She drives an old car, thinks Olive Garden is fancy. She doesn't know you're wealthy." Evelyn smiled. That sounds promising. For her part, Evelyn began a new chapter. She sold the modest apartment she had used as her disguise and donated the furniture to families who needed it more. She volunteered at a women's shelter, teaching financial independence, helping others find strength as she once had. Looking back, Evelyn saw the years of hiding as painful but also necessary. They had revealed truths she would never have learned otherwise. She had seen who loved her for herself and who only loved what they thought she could give. Standing on her balcony one evening, the city lights glittering like 1,000 stars below, she whispered to herself, "Kindness is not weakness, and I will never again apologize for who I am." Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring more journeys and lessons together.